Hello and welcome. My name is Joanna Kay with Screen Magazine, and today we have with us writer, director, producer Iram Parveen Bilal to talk about her third feature film, I'll Meet You There. The film explores immigration and identity, race and surveillance, dance, and Islam. It's about a Muslim police officer in Chicago who is forced to question where his loyalties truly lie when his Orthodox, estranged father unexpectedly visits from Pakistan. Meanwhile, his daughter is concurrently forced to pirouette between her passion for dance and her roots. Iram, thank you so much for joining Screen Magazine to chat about your film I'll Meet You There. Your film, it was powerful and emotional and dark, but at the same time, it was uplifting, which is no small feat to do that. Why was this story important for you to tell?
Thank you for watching it and for saying all that. We're kind of starved for feedback, so we're excited to share our reactions. Why was it important? As you probably have guessed, there's not very many films about the Muslim American experience, and we sometimes feel like we're a zoo animal that is just, captured in headlines.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of important to really parse the identity and parse the variant in experiences. And so this is just one slice of life that is as authentic, as original to these characters as we could make it, showing the length and breadth of just humanity, which is why we think that as specific as the film is, it is also universal. So I just wanted to put another data point in the spectrum of what it means to be Muslim American for audiences to view and kind of see themselves in the story.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, and that's so true because it is specifically Muslim American, but anyone there's something for everyone within your film that anybody can relate to. So what are you hoping that viewers are taking away from your film? What's the message?
I think the message is empathy, right? I think the message is, I want people to call their grandparents after watching the film, or think about their child or their parents. So it's a multi-generational story. I just want people to connect. I want people to sometimes question when they perceive others to be others, and I want people to find common ground rather than sort of differences. And it's a difficult world because we are all in a generation where we are using our identity tags to differentiate ourselves. Yet somehow we have to celebrate specificity whilst also sort of recognizing that we are all from the same fabric. And that's a hard balance to strive. So my hope is just people to connect, people to engage, people to provoke thought, people to question. Not everybody will agree with the film, but at least I want people to just engage.
Awesome. That's really cool. And just your coming from a place of you want people to question things is a very scientific way to approach life. And I know that you started
I
as an
wonder.
engineer. Yeah. Engineer turned artist. Although those things I don't think can be completely separated. But what caused the career change, and how has your engineering background influenced your art?
So I didn't actually practice as an engineer. I was trained as an engineer, but thankfully I was able to realize quickly that my calling was not in a lab or behind a desk in a corporation. It was in telling stories. So I think the career change was simply for the fact that there's enough Pakistani, South Asian doctors, lawyers, and engineers all around the world, and there's not enough storytellers. And the people behind the camera are the ones who are really writing history in some way. And so this was this innate need to have some agency in our storytelling. It was important. I think there's a huge conversation about authentic authorship these days, and I think when it pertains to Muslim American or South Asian stories, how can you have authentic authorship when there are not enough trained authors or just authors? So I think this was a quest to kind of do it and then also inspire and lift other voices like myself.
Awesome. Very cool. So, and I read that this was your first screenplay, but it's actually your third feature. So, tell me about that journey. What were some of the hurdles in getting this screenplay turned into a feature, and the 10 years that it took to do it?
I think it was a combination of just obstructions and hurdles that I was putting in front of myself, as well as
Mhm.
the sort of systemic nature of financing and distribution that operates in this industry. So it was my first script. This is the filmed version is not that first script, of course. It has evolved through the years. It was in the Film Independent Labs. It was
Right.
on tape um, in terms of just the labs. And I think it was a personal story because my sister, who taught me how to dance, now doesn't or believes that music and dance in some form are sinful and cannot be celebrated in the same way.
Mhm.
And we have learned to coexist and we respect each other's views. And so it was a personal story. I was having my own sort of identity crisis with it. That was part of it. But then we did raise the money twice and lost it due to very actually sexist reasons. Where people were just sort of questioning why I needed to pay myself. And I often wondered if I was a middle-aged guy, would that be a question? It was just kind of these very strange reasons why the money fell away. But then I think everything happens for a reason. When Trump was elected and the Muslim ban was signed, I found myself being an activist as well at the protests at LAX. And that was when I just realized it was time to make this movie, and we put out a crowdfunded seeded spark, and that's what kickstarted the whole process of financing again. And so
Mhm.
it's really ironic that Biden reverses the order yesterday and the film's coming out. So I think everything happens, and in some ways I think America is more woke to really engage with a story about a Muslim American protagonist. So within the industry, it was really difficult to get financing. People keep saying things like, but something should be wrong in the mosque. You're just kind of like, why? Literally, I would say just up until 3 4 years ago, that was the rhetoric. And so that
Yeah.
is kind of why we made it as independently as possible.
Mhm.
um, and it would have probably been a different sort of distribution had South by gone ahead, but I do believe everything happens for a reason. So I'm
Yeah.
happy with the impact distribution and the rollout with Level Forward and just all of it.
That's amazing. And I know, I mean, so from when you wrote it and set out to actually make it, the landscape is very different. Rami is in the mainstream now, and we're getting Muslim characters that aren't just terrorists anymore. For the first time, which is amazing. Do you? So how do you feel like? And now, with the lift on the Muslim ban, how do you, I know you haven't gotten a lot of feedback due to the nature of how these film festivals are, but how do you perceive your film will be received now versus if you had made it 5 years ago?
So I have some semblance of data in the sense that we dropped the trailer. Of course, it was like the worst week to be reaching out to press because the insurrection had happened, and we're just finally we decided, you know what, we're just going to drop the trailer. And organically, it really has caught on fire, and people
Amazing.
have reacted in a much more exciting and engaged manner than I expected. So I'm really hopeful that people are really going to connect with the movie. And I mean, I do feel like in the film side of things, a film like this hasn't existed. You've seen sort of comedic approaches to the South Asian identity. You have not necessarily seen too many narratives that are intergenerational and strive to be nuanced in a dramatic side of things. There have been a few here and there, but you haven't seen very many dramas about South Asian identity.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that it has its space. It'll carve its space. It'll lift. Um, it'll be lifted by all these programs you're mentioning, but it will also lift others. That's what we do as artists, right? We do it in a strange consciousness. We are all kind of all everything we do helps each other in some ways, and we have to start thinking about that culture of plenty more and more, because I think the more stories we put out there, the more tastes we kind of uh, incite. So I don't know. I think it's a good time. I don't know. I don't know if that's the foolish optimism in me, but I think it's a good time.
No, I agree with you. I think we're in a time where people are desperate for new and different and learning about different people. So this is a perfect time. I love that everything you said about it. Everything is happening for a reason as for why it's coming out now. And tell me what we'll end on advice that you have for filmmakers. I know you've been through your fair share of hurdles, especially as a writer, producer, director, doing, wearing all the hats. Give me, some tips for filmmakers, things that you've learned.
I mean, first of all, as much as you mentioned these titles, I'm not doing this alone. I have a huge team with me. Granted, there are huge periods of being alone. I sometimes joke that like filmmaking is like life. You come alone and you leave alone. It's so true. I mean, you kind of write it, but then there's a whole like slew of cast and crew that comes, and then at the end of it, you're kind of alone in terms of pitching it and getting it out into the world. There are partners strategically that arrive at every point, but I think that it is so important to um I mean, write what you know, make what you love, because it is a long journey. It doesn't come easy. Anybody out there who is doing work that ultimately shines, for the most part, there's a lot of hard work behind it before that moment of shining. Even if you talk about just someone like Amanda Gorman, who is like in the buzz right now, like the amount of preparation behind that moment, you know, is lost. So I would say to upcoming filmmakers, do not be entitled that someone's going to come and give you a film to direct on a platter. So just be rigorous with your work ethic and understand that if you're in it for fame and money, there are much easier ways to be famous and be rich. So really do it, focus on your why. And it's important to just understand that things will always take longer than you want them to take. So you need to be doing what you really love so you don't have regrets.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. And tell us where and when we can see your film.
Oh, thank you. So it is, we have a fantastic week of live events that are being planned by Level Forward. They kickstart on February 3rd, and all the cool links and everything we'll give you. And so we have, there are screenings that are resonating the themes of the film: race and surveillance, immigrants and identity, rhythms, filmmaker workshop, a gala. And then the film drops on VOD for North America on the 12th with Freestyle. And then we're going to proceed to continue to have private screenings and arts action sessions for people as based on demand. And then we're hoping to roll it internationally in theaters as Corona kind of retreats.
Excellent. Thank you, Iram, so much for joining us. Really.
Thanks, Joanna.
All right.
Thanks.
Take
Stay
care.
safe. Bye.
Bye bye.